Hence, people have been stealing this stuff. It was so dry, the ground was hard again, and that's not normal for this area. Hi friends, welcome to Sunflower Hill. I'm Tina. I'm a single mum homesteading in Victoria in Australia. And today I want to talk about water and the lack thereof it and the too muchness of it and how it affects everything that you do if you're trying to grow food and keep animals on a homestead. In fact, it affects all of us. It's just that if you live in the city on town water, you're not anywhere near as aware of that as I am, being reliant on tanks. So I just want to tell you a little story to start off. So last week I went to the biggest local town where I get hay, and I went to see what they've got, and I found gates locked with a padlock, big chunky padlock. So all the hay was locked up, and when I went to buy some hay and the young woman came to help me load it into my car, I said, "You've locked the hay up. Have you had a theft?" And she said, "There were so many people stealing hay that we had to lock it up." That I've never known that to happen before, and that is a reflection of the year we've had. Now, it looks green behind me. The paddocks look green, and so what we're in at the moment is actually known as a green drought. It's basically it's not enough water. It's not enough rain. It isn't that we've had no rain at all, although we had no rain at all for 2 months. We had not anything, not a drop, and it was very hot. So everything was looking pretty awful then. But in the last month or two, we've had some rain. We've had enough to grow enough grass, a little cover of green grass to make it look green, but not enough to fill tanks, not enough to fill water tanks, not enough to fill groundwater, not enough to fill dams and lakes and that sort of stuff. Over the last couple of weeks, we've had a little bit more. So I'm not here to say whether that green drought is now broken or not, but that's certainly been the situation. So one of the things that has meant is that there was a very poor crop of hay last year. So that's all kinds of hay, but particularly pasture hay and stuff that has, just plain grass hay, which is what most people feed to livestock around here. I am not a livestock farmer. I'm not reliant on livestock for my income, so it's a little bit different, but it does cost a lot to keep animals going. And when you have land, it's very hard to be out here without having some sort of animals on the land. And I have talked before about how I use the natural behaviours and work of my animals to manage the place and to help me grow food. I've only talked about the chooks in any detail so far, but all the animals I have here do have a purpose. I have a couple of horses, and one reason for that is because I had my old horse for 30 years, and I bought her at quite a different time in my life, but I kept her until she died, which still hurts, in early June this year, so about 2 months, not even 2 months ago. And she had a friend. I had to get a friend for her who's basically a rescue horse. She was a broodmare. People are struggling to even give horses away at the moment. They're really struggling, and the horses that get given away because it's a bad year is the brood mares, the unbroken horses or unstarted horses, horses that are lame, horses that have behavioural problems, all the ones that people don't want to put money into looking after at the moment. To put that into context and give you an idea of why people were stealing hay, this is lucerne hay. And this is pretty much the only kind of hay that's really available at the moment. The reason it's available is because it is largely, or a lot of it is grown on irrigation. So obviously it's not been affected as much by the drought. The problem was that we rely on a good spring growth of grass and things like lucerne, whatever it is you're growing, you rely on heavy spring rain to get it growing, and then you rely on a hot early summer to be able to cut it and bale it so that it actually doesn't just sit there and rot in the paddocks. And this year we just didn't, we had 30% less of anything growing. So there was 30% less hay around, and then it continued so that there was no grass growing in autumn. We got very, very little rain in autumn and a very unusually hot autumn. So what it meant is that people who did have hay have kept that to feed to their own livestock. And around here, it's big farms, really big farms, thousands of acres. My little 7 acres, 7 1/3 acres is an anomaly. Most of the farms around here, the one next to me is 600 acres. The other one to my north and west is quote unquote thousands. I asked the owner when I first moved here and he didn't know. He just said, oh, I don't know, thousands. So those sorts of people are feeding their hay to their livestock to keep them going. They're not selling it. So around here particularly, it's very hard to get hay. And it's really expensive. This lucerne is what, $28.50 a bale at the moment, and it's the next lot is going up to $32 a bale. And I'm not talking big bales, I'm talking these little ones. So I'm talking small bales of hay, just a normal bale. I'm not talking the big round one or a big square one. I'm just talking normal small bales of hay. So I go through 2 of those bales, 2 to 3 of these bales a week, feeding 2 horses, and then I feed them hard feed as well, which means grain, chaff, etc. Because I give my horses minerals. That's probably a subject for another video. But hence, people have been stealing this stuff. Not that it's okay to steal it. It's so not okay to steal stuff. It is not. Food if you're starving maybe, but it's not cool to steal things. But that is what's going on at the moment. So you can see the paddocks out here have a very small, limited amount of grass on them. It's still looking very, very, very flat. There's a lot of bits that are still, until the last, say, well, it actually got dry again. So until a few days ago when we had another lot of rain, it was so dry, the ground was hard again, and that's not normal for this area. Please don't comment at me in the comments saying that, you know, people are doing it tougher and there's drier areas. Of course there are. But the point of this video is just to point out that you can't entirely rely on nature and rainfall. So what am I doing about it? What do I do for water, and what should you think about if you are trying to set up a homestead to try and secure your ability to grow food and feed animals if you have them, and just keep everything going if you do have a drought, because hey, you will at some point. It's Australia, we have regular droughts, but even if you're in other places in the world, nature is quite fickle, and most places in the world will experience ups and downs of water. Now, while saying all this, other parts of Australia, the East Coast, have had way too much rain, and they've had floods. And a friend up there, her horse's feet are constantly, she's battling with fungal issues on her horse's feet, and mud causes its own problems. Now, it looks like there's a few clouds over there. We've been getting a lot of clouds, not much rain, a lot of promise, not much delivery on the rain front. Like I said, we have had patches of rain, but it hasn't been sustained. So it'll rain and then it just stops. And we get a lot of wind. We've had actually quite strong wind this year, and it just dries up the ground again. Okay, so behind me right there are a couple of water tanks, and I've actually had a few changes with that recently. Those are as part of my bore water system. One of the best things you can have if you're buying land to do a homestead on, or any kind of self-sufficiency food growing, is to buy a place with a bore. It's just the most reliable water source that you're going to have. Of course, bore water is of different quality in different places, so you may have to get it tested. Some of it may be too saline to use, or you may have to filter it, or, you know, whatever, you may have to evaporate it or something like that. But a bore is a wonderful thing, and around here the bore water is pretty good. So I when I got this place, it already had a bore sunk. There's already a bore and it's down the hill. So I'm going to show you my bore system today, and that is the one thing that has enabled me to keep growing food. It's great if you look, if you're buying a place, if you're looking at places, dams are great. Don't get me wrong, dams are great. However, dams actually really do dry up a lot more than you'd think they do. It has to be really, really deep dam not to dry up over a dry year like this. So a bore is a much more reliable. Don't get me wrong, not everyone can do it. It costs money. But if you are looking at places and you do have options between a place with a bore and a place without one, choose the place with the bore. Even if it has other disadvantages, I'd still go with the place with the bore. Because water is so vital. You can't do anything without it. You can do nothing. If I hadn't had the bore over last summer, I would have lost, my trees suffered because I couldn't get enough water to them, but I would have lost a lot of trees that I have spent 5, 6, 7 years growing. And I wouldn't have had any veggie crop at all, because there's no way I can store enough water in tanks to water vegetables and trees. I can't imagine how many tanks you'd have to have. If you've only got a little place and you've got a small little veggie garden, you might be able to, collect tank water, but I'm reliant on tank water, so I need it for the house, for showers and cooking and all the things you need for your house. So a tank would not work for me for doing plants as well. It just run out too quickly. Let me show you my bore system and the changes I've made to it. So the most recent change I've made to the bore system is demonstrated by the cat, by Isla there, is this new tank here. So I actually bought this tank on sale. It was a bargain 5 years ago, and I just never got round to attaching it. My bore system works by pumping water up from down there. I'll show you the bore in a minute. The bore itself is down the hill, so it pumps water up the hill to holding tanks here. And the only holding tank I've had for years and years and years, for 7 years, is this IBC, which only holds 1,000 litres. It's been an absolute pest of a system, because I'll pump up 1,000 litres, and then particularly in summer, or if I'm filling up a couple of big water troughs, I'll empty that within a day. If I'm having to water trees and stuff, that does not last a day. And so the problem with that is that it then, from here, it runs down the hill to a pump, which pumps it out to all the hoses. And if this empties here, then the pump empties down the bottom, and the pump's running dry, and that runs a pump out very quickly. So basically I got this second tank to try and alleviate that problem a bit, because this tank is 5,000 litres and at the moment it's full. And the best way to check a tank like this for fullness is to knock on it. So that's an empty sound. That's empty. That's full. So this tank is up to about there at the moment. So this tank, I had to get a plumber in to do this, because it was actually fairly complicated. If you've got a system like this where you've got a bore pump pumping water up a hill, then you do need to be careful, because this tank is 5,000 litres, which is 5 tonnes. So if you're pumping from the bottom, this system originally was attached straight to that opening there in the bottom of this tank, and it pumped water up the hill into the bottom of this tank and just filled it and filled it and filled it. When it was over full, it would just come out the top here and overflow. And that's why this is actually muddy and looks wet, because of the overflow from this tank, not because of rain. Normally it'd be a lot wetter. So because of the difference in heights of these two tanks, the plumber was not able to keep this one in the system, so that had to be disconnected, because if you're filling this tank and you're filling that tank and they're on the same system, it would just come out of this one. It was not going to work. So this one's been disconnected. I will definitely reuse this IBC, probably as a horse feeder, I'll show you that another time. And probably as the frame I'll probably use for feeding the horses, and the bladder I will turn into a pool for the kids, and the other half I'm planning on doing some experiments with a wicking bed. So we'll see how we go with that. So this line originally, there were 2 of these tanks, and the water line, this is a new piece of piping, but that's irrelevant. So the original line came from there into the IBC, and there was originally 2 IBCs, but the other one broke, and then straight back. So the pump was pumping water up, filling this IBC, and then the water was coming straight back out. Exactly the same system. Now that is still pretty much the same, but for this new tank, the plumber had to do it differently because this is 5,000 litres, and as much work as it probably was for the pump to push up 1,000 litres, because again, it was coming from the bottom. It was pushing in and filling this tank upwards, and then the tank's going out through the same pipes, rather, the same poly pipes. So it was not the best system, but that's 1 tonne, and this new tank is 5 tonnes. So the plumber suggested not doing that in the same way. So instead, he's run a pipe up the side here, and that fills this tank from the top. Inside this tank, there's a float that once it gets to a certain level, cuts off the bore pump from filling. It cuts off the water so it doesn't sit and overflow like that one did, and it empties from the bottom. So at least this particular tank empties from a different place that it fills from. So it fills up the top there from the bore, and then it comes out down here. And when I fill this, I have to turn off this this valve to isolate the tank, fill it, turn it back on, and I have to go and turn the bore pump on and off and stuff like that. The bore pump doesn't want to kick in and out all the time, so that would shorten the life of the bore pump quite quickly and quite a lot. Now let's have a bit of a look. Let's have a walk down the hill and have a look at the other parts of the system. Okay, so under here is the bore pump. The bore pump's a submersible. It's actually 30 metres under the ground, the pump itself. But here is the bits that you can see. Oh, not the best system, but oh, snails. That's the top part of the bore pump that you can see. So the bore pump is under the ground and pumps up water into this system here. And this just goes all over the place. It goes over there, past the house and round here. And it goes, you can see here, there's some of it. But this part here takes it back up the hill to where we were before. So it's a fair bit of a hill that it pumps it up. And then it's all on the same system. It doesn't go up the hill and that's one line, and then come back down again and that's another line. It goes all over the place and it's all connected. So if I turn on this bore pump, it will pump it through around the whole property and including that tank. So it's a bit of a complicated system. It should really be separated, but hey, I didn't set it up. And this is the other part of the system here. So I plug in my 2 pumps there. There's the bore and there's this pump under here. It's a cheap one from My Deal. It really was very cheap, but it's a really good, reliable little pump. So you can actually get good stuff off some of those places. My Deal, I have got good stuff. Anyway, the water comes from up the hill and it goes into this and gets pumped by the pump under there, and this is the tap that we use. So this tap here just does front and back hoses, and that does the whole place. This one tiny little pump pumps water around to the whole place. Over summer I use these sprinklers because that basically is the only thing that will pump enough water around. That tiny pump does not run more than one of these sprinklers at a time. It's the only way I can keep this area green and keep the trees alive. And quite honestly, it's really important to have green areas around a house because of fire risk. So it's something well worth doing. And here's Sylvia, who is the broodmare I was telling you about. She's basically just a rescue. Was very, hardly handled at all. When I got her, had hardly been handled, and she was in pretty poor condition. So I've fattened her up and look after her, but she's just got a home here forever. And when my old girl died, I had to get her a friend. So that's Jeannie, and she's a standard bred. She's a beautiful girl. She's also an off the racetrack horse, but I am hoping to do some work with her. She's a sweet horse. So this trough here is another thing that the plumber fixed. It had been not working for about 4 years, at least about 4 years. So we were filling this by hand. It's actually got an automatic float in it. These troughs are really expensive, so unfortunately I can't afford to put them in all of the paddocks, but I would if I could, because not having to hand fill water troughs is fantastic. Hello. Hello. Hello, Jeannie. Oh, do you want your dinner? You want your dinner? She'd love her dinner, wouldn't you? If you like your hay, you like your lucerne. So in the morning they get a hard feed, and in this time of day they get that lucerne, that expensive, much stolen lucerne. And that's what they're waiting for at the moment. Good girl. She's an absolute sweetheart. I do positive reinforcement training with my horses and dogs and any other animals I have to teach anything to. So I will do some videos on that soon. It may not be strictly homesteading. It's kind of homesteading. It is homesteading because it's better to deal with animals in a positive way that makes them feel good about life. Isn't it? Yeah. Good girl. She has a rug. Her rug's about to go on, and she's about to get her dinner. Okay, friends, thank you for joining me today to have a bit of a look at my bore water system. Hopefully, fingers crossed, we'll have a better season this year, and next year won't be so stressful with hay and with feed and with just water for everything. Hopefully it will now start raining consistently. It's been so dry for 12 months, more than 12 months now. So hopefully it will now start raining consistently. Please tell me in the comments, what are some of the things you do for water security on your place? I have a different system for my house. I have a system of rainwater tanks from the roof on my house. I have 2 tanks, and that's a whole other system. But tell me what you do for water at your place, whether you have town water, whether you have a bore system, whether you have a big dams, or whether you are able to pump water from a river or lake or something like that. I'd love to hear about it, because I know people deal with these, with the vagaries of nature in different ways. So if you haven't subscribed yet, I'd love it if you could please just subscribe down below. Costs nothing, just tap on the subscribe and you're done. And then you'll hear all about my videos coming up. Also, if you could give this video a like if you liked it, that would be fabulous. Thank you so much. And so it's hooroo from me, and it's hooroo from. See you next time.
Let's eat.